learners, welcome to the session on management of liquid wastes in the food industry. This is a part of your MOOC course on food fundamentals and chemistry. In the previous session, we discussed about the management of the solid wastes in the food industry, and today we will be focusing on the management of liquid wastes in the food industry. You know, the food industry produces huge quantity of wastewater or liquid wastes from different sections, from the processing, preservation, packaging areas. And these wastewater or liquid wastes contain food particles, contain organic content, minerals, then microbes, and if these are not properly managed, what will happen? This will lead to the unhygienic, unsanitary condition in the food processing area, or preservation area, or the packaging area. This can also spread the diseases to the employees. So, this can endanger the public health. This can also produce foul smell and the greenhouse gases. If these are discharged into the environment, it can contaminate the soil, it can pollute the soil, the air and the water. So, the proper management of all these liquid wastes are very important. So, I will try to make you understand the various aspects of the management of the liquid wastes in the food industry. After going through this session, you will be able to explain benefits of liquid waste management. You will be able to identify the various sources of liquid wastes generated in the food industry. You will also be able to describe characteristics of wastewater or effluent from food industry. You will become familiar with the standards for discharge of industry effluents, and finally, you will be able to discuss various methods of effluent treatment. So, let us begin with the benefits of the liquid waste management. First and foremost important benefit is that the proper liquid waste management can help us to ensure the public health and the safety. If the wastes are properly managed, properly treated, then that can prevent the spread of the diseases, that can maintain the hygiene and sanitary condition in the food industry. Secondly, this will help to minimize the environmental impact. If the liquid wastes are not treated properly, if they are discharged into the environment, that can pollute the water sources, and as these contain high quantity of organic matters. So, for decomposition of the organic matter by the microbes, that will require the oxygen. So, the oxygen in the aquatic source will get depleted just because of this dirty, this waste water from the food industry. So, that will endanger the life of the aquatic flora and fauna. And there will also be a chance of decomposition of the organic content by the microbes in anaerobic condition, that will lead to the production of the greenhouse gas, that will pollute the air, that will also produce foul smell, and that the microbes and the chemicals present in the wastewater can also contaminate the soil. So, all these can be taken care if the liquid wastes from the food industry are managed properly. So, that will reduce the environmental impact. Next, this will also help to promote the resource recoveries. Some important nutrients or important resources like the water or the energy, that can be recovered from the proper management of the liquid wastes. The liquid wastes will be recycled, and the resources can also be conserved. For example, if the recycled and water can be reused as a potable or non-potable sources, then there will be reduced demand for the freshwater resources. And lastly, this proper management of liquid waste also helps to comply with the regulations for the wastewater discharge into the environment. So, let us now see what are the different sources of liquid wastes in the food industry. So, the quantity and quality of the effluents or the wastewater or the liquid wastes depend on the type of the food processing industries involved. So, this liquid waste can be generated at different steps, starting from the production, the processing, preservation and marketing. So, the water involved in the processing of this food, that can also form the wastewater, and the different parts of the food also can form the liquid waste in the food industry. For example, fruits and vegetable processing, the water used for the washing the fruits and vegetable, that can form the wastewater. And the fruit juice, in the canning section, in the blanching section, in the washing section, some water is used which can also form the wastewater. In the meat and poultry processing area, water used for the washing of the carcass, washing of the meats and the organs, that can form the wastewater, and the blood, if it is not collected properly, that can also get mixed with the wastewater, can form the wastewater. The fat of the animals, similarly for fish processing also, the oils, the blood and washing water can form the wastewater. In the dairy processing unit, the liquid, the rejected milk, the whey, the buttermilk, cream, butter, these can also form the part of the wastewater. In the beverage production area, the wastes can contain the sugars, the fruit pulp, and also from the alcoholic beverage production area, the fermented byproducts. From baking and confectionery, water from dough mixing or cooling. Then wastes can also come from the sugar, fats, tea, coffee and chocolate processing. From canning and preservation, brine, preservatives, acids can also form the wastewater. These are about the wastewater generated from the food processing operations. There can also be production of wastewater from the cleaning and sanitization, cleaning of the equipments, sanitization of the equipments or the food processing area, the food contact services, and there can also be residual detergents and sanitizers in the wastewater. From packaging operations also there can be the formation of the wastewater, because the cleaning of the packaging materials like the bottles, jars or the cans, that also need water and that can form the wastewater. From cooling system or for heating system, the heating system for heating water in steam generation or for heat processing of food, that can also form the liquid waste in the food industry. So, these are the various sources of liquid waste in the food industry. And as these liquid wastes comes from different industry, they contain the high quantity of organic content. So, the characteristics of wastewater from food industry are like the high organic content. So, all the wastewater contains the fats or oils or proteins or sugars or starches, and accordingly there will be high level of biological oxygen demand, that is BOD, and chemical oxygen demand because of the high organic content. Then another characteristic is that wastewater can have high nutrient load. So, nutrient like the nitrogen that can comes from proteins, phosphorus that can come from the additives. Then there will be also high suspended solids in the form of organic and inorganic particles, food debris, fibers that can be present in the wastewater. Then there can be variable pH levels. pH level can ranges from the acidic to alkaline. For example, in the fruit juice and vinegar processing, that wastewater can be acidic in nature. From the dairy and meat processing area, wastewater can be alkaline in nature. Then there can also be presence of fats, oils and grease, which are also known as FOG. That is very common in the meat processing, dairy processing, frying and bakery operations. Then color can also be important characteristics of wastewater, because sometimes wastewater can also be discolored, especially from fruits and vegetable processing because of application of some of the food additives, coloring agents, and also for the discoloration may be due to the decomposition of the organic matter present in the wastewater. Then there can also be odor, unpleasant smells due to the production of different sulfur, ammonia, phenolic compounds from the decomposition of organic matter and fats. There can also be turbidity because of the suspended solids and organic materials present in the wastewater. The toxicity is also another important characteristics, because this wastewater can have some harmful chemicals, can have pesticides residues, heavy metals residues, detergent and sanitizers. And it can also have different types of microbes, maybe bacteria, fungi, algae, protozoa, virus, etc. So, these are the important characteristics of wastewater from the food industry. So, based on these characteristics, certain parameters have been decided which are to be considered for discharge of wastewater. And these important parameters are like the BOD, that is the biological oxygen demand. So, that is the measurement of the amount of the oxygen which is required by the microorganisms to oxidize or decompose the organic matter over a period of specific time at a specific temperature. If it is done for 3 days, then it is called as BOD 3, if it is done for 5 days, it is called as BOD 5. Then another important parameter is COD, that is chemical oxygen demand, that is the measurement of the amount of oxygen required for chemical oxidation of organic and inorganic matter present in the wastewater. Then total suspended solids or TSS, FOG, that is fat, oil and grease, then pH of the wastewater, the temperature of the wastewater, then color, turbidity, residual chlorine, residual nitrogen, ammonia, etc. All these are important parameters. There are many more parameters, but these are normally considered for the discharge of the wastewater. So, any food industry in our country, they have to follow certain rules and regulations regarding the discharge, disposal of the liquid waste into the environment. Okay. So, the relevant food laws are like the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, according to which the food industry has to maintain certain sanitary and hygienic conditions in the food industry. So, that is also having some requirements regarding the waste disposal. Then there are the acts like the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981, Environmental Protection Act 1986. So, as per the requirements of these acts, the Central Pollution Control Board has set some discharge standards for various parameters of wastewater. So, let us have a quick look at the standards for the discharge of the wastewater as per the CPCB. There are many parameters which are mentioned in the CPCB, many standards for different parameters like the BOD, COD, oil and grease, suspended solids, pH and different residues, chemical residues, etc. But here in this table, I will show you only the 3 parameters for different wastewater from the different food processing area. So, here you can see that the permissible maximum permissible limit as per these standards are mentioned here in the table. Maximum permissible limit for the BOD, for oil and grease and suspended solids, and all these are expressed in the unit of milligram per liter of wastewater, that is as per the ppm. So, if you see the BOD of the wastewater which comes from the fruits and vegetable industry, if it is to be discharged into the environment, then the BOD should be maximum 30 ppm. The oil and grease should be 10 ppm, the suspended solids 50 ppm. If you see the wastewater from the dairy, meat and seafood area, then the BOD level should be maximum 100 if it is discharged as the discharge into the surface water, into the public sphere. If it is meant for discharging into the drinking water sources, then the limit should be maximum permissible limit is much lower, that is only 30 ppm is allowed if the wastewater is discharged into the drinking water source for both from the dairy or meat or seafood section. Okay. From grain and pulses, you can see that the maximum permissible limit of BOD is 30, for suspended solid it is 100, if it is for surface water, if it is discharged into the public sphere, then the suspended solids can be little higher, maybe 600 ppm. So, same for the vegetable oil and the beverages. So, for achieving these standards for discharging the wastewater into the environment, the food industry need to manage the liquid waste very well. And how can they do that? First and foremost important part is the prevention or reduction of the liquid waste generation. So, that is the reduction at the source where the liquid waste is generated, that if that source can be taken care of very well, then can reduce the quantity of the waste generated. That can be done by implementing the very good production system. So, optimizing all the production processing operations, by regular maintenance of all the equipments, by training of all the employees. So, that can be taken care of. The quantity of the liquid waste can be reduced at the generation point itself. After that, some of the important liquid waste can also be utilized for byproduct utilization. For example, whey is a byproduct of cheese production. If whey is not used properly, it will form the wastewater, but if the whey is processed and it can be used for the preparation of whey protein drinks or powder, whey protein concentrates, etc. Similarly, the blood which is obtained from the meat industry, that is collected properly and processed, that can be used for the edible purpose, for preparation of animal food like the blood meal, that can also be used in the pharmaceutical industry. So, by this way some of the wastes can be used for the byproduct and value added product preparation. After that, the wastewater can also be recycled and reused. So, treated wastewater can be reused as a potable or non-potable water depending on the final quality of the treated wastewater. The wastewater can also be used for the recovery of the nutrients, for example, recovery of the nitrogen or phosphorus, or also for recovery of some of the sources and resources conservation, like we can also get the biogas from the processing of the wastes. And if these are not possible, if the food industry has to discharge the wastewater to the environment, Then they also need to treat the effluents before discharging into the surface water or land irrigations, etc. So, for the treatment of the wastewater, the food industry needs to have one effluent treatment plant, that is called as ATP. And the design of the ATP depends on various factors, like what is the size and capacity of the industry, what is the volume of the wastewater generated there, what are the wastewater characteristics, what is the required characteristics in the treated effluent from that industry, what is the budgetary considerations, and whether it would be viable to go in for systems that generate energy like the biogas or heat, etc. So, depending upon all these, the industry needs to design their ETP, that effluent treatment plant, and it is not possible for all the food industry to have their own ETP. For example, for the small food processing industry, they may not have the proper ETP, but they also need to properly treat, at least give the pre-treatment or primary treatment to the wastewater to reduce the load of the organic content, reduce the load of the microbes. Through the use of some of the physical and chemical process, they need to process the wastewater, then they can discharge it into the public sphere for the further processing. For the large food industry, they can have a proper ETP and they can process, they can use some physical, chemical and biological methods and some advanced technologies to treat the wastewater and can reuse the wastewater or discharge it into the environment. So, now we will see what are the different methods of wastewater or effluent treatment. So, for effluent treatment, the industry can follow various physical methods, chemical methods, biological methods. At the very first stage, that is the pre-treatment stage, the physical methods like screening, skimming, flow equalization, that can be adopted. The next stage, that is the primary treatment, where the physical methods like sedimentation, flotation, that can be adopted. The chemical methods like the coagulation and flocculation or neutralization can be adopted. The next stage, that is the secondary treatment, which is also a biological treatment, because here the microbes are utilized for the decomposition of the organic content of the wastewater. So, in the secondary treatment, that there can be aerobic digestion, can be anaerobic digestion. The aerobic digestion, the methods like the activated sludge process, trickling filter, aerated lagoon, that can be used. In the anaerobic digestion, that anaerobic lagoons or anaerobic digester can be used. After the secondary or biological treatment of the wastewater, you can also go for the further treatment, that is the tertiary treatment, where the methods like the filtration, membrane separation, disinfection and nutrient removal can be done. So, now I will discuss all these methods one by one. In the pre-treatment phase, that is the screening, skimming and flow equalizations are done. Screening is the first and the most frequently used process for removal of the large solid particles. And different types of screens can be used, like the vibrating screens, static screens or rotary screen. And the sands or gravels like component that can also be removed by use of a grit chambers. In the skimming, that is used for removal of the large floatable solids which are present in the wastewater. Floatable solids also can include that fats or oils or grease. These can also be removed by the skimming method, and this will help to prevent the clogging of the pipe. Skimming can be enhanced by the mechanical aerator and also by addition of some of the chemicals like lime, alum, etc. Next method is the flow equalization. Why this is important? Because in a food processing industry, there will not be the production of the liquid waste in equal quantity throughout the day, throughout the operational time. Okay. So, to overcome the operational problems due to the flow variations, equalization is very important. Flow equalization or flow rate should be uniform. So, for that purpose, a equalizing tank is used, which can store the wastewater for recycling and reuse, and also feed the flow uniformly to treatment facility throughout the day. This is also designed for the sufficient mixing of the solids and which also prevents the sedimentation. So, after the pre-treatment of the wastewater, next the wastewater goes for the primary treatment. The primary treatment, first physical method is the sedimentation, which helps to remove the settlable solids. The rotating collectors which are used in the settling tank or clarifier that scrape the settled sludge from the bottom of the tank. Settling can be done by force of gravity, or aggregation of solids can also be facilitated by the flocculants or coagulants. So, some coagulants and flocculants can be used to facilitate the sedimentation. So, as coagulant, alum, lime, ferrous sulphate, ferric sulphate and ferric chloride can be used to coagulate the suspended solids, and as flocculant, iron, alum, calcium, magnesium can be used. Mechanical or air agitation is also done to develop the aggregates from finely separated matter. Next physical method is the flotation. Flotation is done to remove the solid or suspended particles by introducing air bubbles. Air bubbles can be introduced in the wastewater at atmospheric pressure, under vacuum and under high pressure. One of the good example of this flotation is the dissolved air flotation, which is widely used. And suspended particles rise to the surface to form a scum blanket, which is separated by skimming devices, and oil and grease are also removed easily by this flotation method. Next method is neutralization, that is a chemical method of treatment at the primary treatment level. You know that effluents contain acidic or alkaline compounds. For examples, from the vinegar production area, fruit juice production area, the effluent can contain the acidic component, and some of the effluents can also have the alkaline component. So, the pH of the wastewater can vary from pH 6 to 9. So, just to neutralize that, different neutralizer can be used. For the acidic effluent can be neutralized with the help of lime, ammonia, caustic soda, and the alkaline effluent can be treated with hydrochloric acid or sulfuric acid, etc., to neutralize it. So, after all this treatment, whatever sludge is produced, that collected sludge from the primary treatment should be concentrated and treated before the final disposal. So, after the primary treatment, the treated wastewater is sent for the secondary treatment, where the help of the microorganisms that can help in decomposition of the organic and inorganic component present in the wastewater. Secondary treatment can be anaerobic, can be aerobic. First, we will see the anaerobic digestions of the organic components. So, anaerobic digester are legumes that produce the methane, carbon dioxide gas, etc. But it helps to produce less quantity of sludge, and the BOD reduction is almost 60 to 80%, and normally it is followed by the aerobic legumes or trickling filters. It is a cheaper method and it produces less amount of sludge. Here you can see the flow diagram for the anaerobic digestion of the wastewater, organic matter present in the wastewater. First, with the help of the microbes, there will be hydrolysis of the complex organic matter, which will produce the simpler compounds like the glucose, amino acid, fatty acids. Then the acidogenic microbes that will convert that simpler compounds to volatile fatty acids, hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Then comes the role of the acetogenic microbes, which will convert this volatile fatty acids to acetate. Then the methanogenic microbes that converts the acetate into methane, carbon dioxide, water and biomass. So, this is the way how the biomass is produced, that is the sludge, and the methane gas is produced, which can be used as the biogas or the source of heat energy. In the aerobic treatment, secondary aerobic treatment, there are different methods which can be followed, like the aerobic lagoons, oxidation ponds, activated sludge process, trickling filter, etc. In aerobic digestion, microbes degrade organic matter to carbon dioxide, water and biomass, and this process reduces the BOD and suspended solids to a great extent and produces good quantity of sludge also. Now, we will see what happens in the aerobic lagoon, oxidation ponds or the stabilization pond. These are shallow ponds where algae and bacteria work together in presence of oxygen and sunlight and degrade the organic matter present in the wastewater. Aeration can be done naturally or mechanically. If naturally aerated lagoons are called as the oxidation pond, and this method reduces the BOD level up to 70 to 90%. The next is the activated sludge process, which where the wastewater is treated in an aeration tank where the air is mixed with the raw wastewater, and then they are allowed to stay there for some time, and then in the clarifier or settler that is allowed to settle down, that will produce the treated wastewater and the sludge, and some part of that sludge is returned to the aeration tank, added to the aeration tank, which will provide the microbial source for the decomposition of the organic waste. That is why this is called as activated sludge method. So, activated sludge actually has the viable microorganisms that actively decompose the wastes. Next is the trickling filter. that also applies the decomposition of the organic waste with the help of the microbes. Here effluent is passed over a bed of microbial culture that forms the biofilm that degrades the organic matter, and the fixed bed of this treated filter is made of rocks, crushed stone, gravel, plastic media, etc. Here effluent is sprayed over surface of the bed by an overhead sprayer that after reaction with the microbes that wastewater comes to the bottom side, and then that is allowed for settling down. There will be formation of sludge and the treated wastewater. Then another process is sequencing batch reactors, SBR. This is a batch process where the wastewater undergoes both aerobic and anaerobic stages in the same reactor. So, these are all about the secondary treatment. If the ETP has the facilities for the further treatment of the wastewater, if they have the advanced technologies for the treatment, they can go for the tertiary treatment. Tertiary treatment includes like the filtration, which helps to remove the suspended solids using different filters. Filters can be granular media filter, which are pressure filter or gravity filters. There can also be application of some carbon, activated carbon adsorption method, so which will adsorb the suspended matter along with that activated carbon and remove that suspended solid particles from the wastewater. Then there can also be application of membrane separation. This will help to remove fine suspended and dissolved solids, maybe organic or minerals, on the basis of selective permeability of one or more components of wastewater through a membrane. So, depending on the pore size of these membranes, the method can be ultrafiltration, can be microfiltration, nanofiltration or reverse osmosis. So, these filtration and membrane separation that will help to remove the suspended and dissolved solid from the fine solids from the wastewater, but still the wastewater can have some microbes. So, next step is the disinfection. So, disinfection ensures that water is free from any kind of pathogens, and for disinfection there can be use of ultraviolet rays, and ozone or chlorine treatment can also be done. But after chlorine treatment there is also chance of the residual chlorine present in the treated water. So, that has to be dechlorinated before discharged into the environment, as the residual chlorine is toxic to the aquatic flora and fauna. Next is the nutrient removal. As I mentioned that the wastewater can have some nutrients like the nitrogen or phosphorus, those are to be removed from the wastewater. Otherwise, if this wastewater, treated wastewater along with nitrogen and phosphorus is discharged into the waterways, water streams, river or pond, then that will cause actually the eutrophication and helps in algal bloom in the water bodies, which is not desirable at all. So, all these nutrients are to be removed at the tertiary treatment point. So, ultimate disposal of the liquid, that is the treated wastewater and the sludge. The treated wastewater can be reused in the food industry, can be discharged into the river, pond, ocean or for land irrigation. It can be reused as a drinking water quality if the quality of the treated wastewater is of drinking water quality, or it can also be used for the non-process purpose, for the cooling, for the cleaning of the areas which are not the food contact surface. So, for non-process area also this treated water can be reused. And the solid which we get from the treatment of this wastewater, that is the sludge, that can also be properly managed, firstly by dewatering. Excess sludge is dewatered and sent for further treatment or disposal, and sludge can also be reused for the production of the energy, the biogas, or can be utilized as the fertilizer. So, this is all about the management of the liquid wastes in the food industry. So, now it is a time for summarizing the whole session. What we learned today: first, we discussed that the food industry produces huge quantity of liquid waste during production operations, cleaning, sanitizing and packaging, etc. Wastewater is characterized by high organic matter, suspended solids, fat, oil, grease, color, odor, turbidity, toxic materials, microbes, etc. Liquid waste management ensure public health and hygiene, reduce the environmental impact, ensure resource recovery and conservation, ensure compliance with the government regulations. And effluent should be treated properly before discharging into the public waterways, and the standards are set by the Central Pollution Control Board, which are to be followed by the food industry. Then effluents can be treated by pre-treatment, primary treatment, secondary treatment and tertiary treatment methods. In the pre-treatment phase, the methods like screening, skimming, equalization can be done. Primary treatments like sedimentation, coagulation, flocculation and neutralization can be done. In the secondary treatment, or that is the biological treatment, the anaerobic or aerobic digestions, the aerobic lagoons, trickling filters, active sludge method can be followed. In the tertiary level, the advanced technologies like the filtration, membrane separation, then disinfection of the wastewater is done. And finally, the treated wastewater can be reused as non-processed water or drinking water or discharged into a river, pond, ocean, land irrigations depending upon the quality of the final product. And sludge can be used as fertilizer and used for biogas production. This is all about the basics of the management of liquid wastes in the food industry. So, I hope that you could learn the basics of the liquid waste management and you will be able to respond to the quizzes which will be shared with you after this session. I wish you happy learning.